Well, first of all, Jen, thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this panel today. I always enjoy getting to spend time with super smart people. And I recognize I'm usually never the smartest person in the room, right? So this is a key attribute to have, to surround yourself by smart people. And today I get to do that once again. So love being able to collaborate here with Joe and with Stuart. And for all of you who know both of these guys, collectively, their brains, I don't know how they fit in this room, but they are amazing people. And I tap them for advice all the time, as I do so many other folks that are in this room. But in terms of the answer to your question, right, like where we, and a quick take, I would say that our city's fiscal condition is precarious right now. And rather than go down like some fiscal rabbit holes that we could talk about forever as examples, I think I want to paint a picture of what I'm talking about. So today, after you leave this room, when you're going back to work, or maybe you're heading home, or to whatever else you have to do, another meeting, just take a look around you and notice what you don't see in your sightline. You know, it's not just our feathered friends who have flown south. It's what I call our most important bird in Chicago, the crane. And when you look around and you see that this important symbol of a city's economic health is no longer visible, like we don't see them. Back in 2019, in the beginning of 2019, we had 61 cranes up in the city of Chicago. Today we have 4. And with the facts are, you know, that when you see city cranes at construction sites, they are in fact an indicator of a city's health and certainly of their economic growth. And so go to Austin, Texas. You're going to see developments of all kinds. Construction related to commercial, to residential. In fact, Austin had 26,000 home permits built for construction last year. And we had 5,600 in the city of Chicago. And Austin is so much smaller than the city of Chicago. Houston is nipping at our heels to become the 3rd largest city in America. And there's a ton of construction happening there, you know, major investments happening, cranes everywhere you look. And you can go to the other side of the country with Miami. A ton of construction. In fact, Illinois laborers are now working on job sites in Florida because there's not enough work happening here. And we're talking about booming economies that are not in our city because those jobs have fled our city and we need to bring them back. So I really do think that we need to think about how we go about supporting businesses. We should make it really easy for businesses to set up shop here. I just met not that long ago with Marty Ozinga. Any of you guys have heard of Ozinga Concrete? So to close up my little loop here, I met with him. He was really excited because he is going to be expanding. He's opening up a new facility, right? And that is such great news. We should be celebrating this every time we can. Businesses opening up, expanding. The bad news is that he's opening up this new facility in East Chicago, literally across the street from the city of Chicago. We should have had that business, but instead he opened it up in East Chicago. Why? Because it took him all of 4 months to get all the permits that he needed to be able to get that business up and running. And it took him 4 years of trying with the city of Chicago to no avail. So a lot of work that has to be done, but when you think about what other cities are experiencing and what we're not, I think it does paint the picture of a city that is in a very precarious financial situation. Okay, well, I mean, there's lots of pivotal moments, if you think about it, right? We've been around for quite some time, and a few short examples. I mean, shorting pensions, pivotal moment, right? Selling off incredibly valuable assets far below their value, and then running through all those funds. Those are pivotal moments that have put us in a very difficult financial situation. Every single instance of reckless borrowing is another pivotal moment. And we've seen too many of those, just even recently. Lacking transparency is pivotal in actually losing people's trust. And so these are important things, you know, when you're trying to pass tough things through. you have to have trust. And if you're not willing to explain, if you're not willing to take ownership of it, you're not going to have trust. And without trust, you don't have much. Getting credit downgrades, those are more pivotal moments. Why? Because they put us in a more precarious financial situation. It costs more to borrow. It costs more to get things done. Refusing to make cuts, right? And then trying to slam through a $300 million property tax increase, only to then thankfully have to walk it back, right? That's more like whiplash. But that's a precarious moment because it puts on full display really the lack of governance, the lack of leadership. It shows poor leadership. And I think it's really critically important to say that when you have too many of those pivotal moments, and you don't have moments where you're showing off the ability to have stability and predictability, then you're going to continue to have those bad pivotal moments, right? They're all going to be towards the negative. In the absence of good leadership is when you get instability and unpredictability. But with good leadership, you have that stability, you have the predictability. People look at the city as a place that they're willing to bet on and they're willing to invest in. So I think that rather than kind of focus on all these little past pivotal moments that have gotten us here, what we need is how do we get out of here, right? And I think that the answer to that, the reason why we've had so many pivotal moments is because it's been a long time since we've actually had a leader who is willing to make tough decisions, who's willing to explain those decisions and own them, and who is willing, most importantly, to take accountability for those decisions. In the absence of that, you get more of these negative pivotal moments. And, while that sounds depressing, I do think that, things can change, right? So none of this is unsalvageable.
Follow-up question to that. How much of this current situation mirrors what you tackled at the state level and the federal level?
Well, I think that a lot of what you're seeing at the city level is the opposite of what we've done at the state level. I mean, I inherited a disaster when I became city clerk. State controller. People who love me were like, are you crazy? Why are you running for that? That's got to be the hardest job in Illinois right now. We were facing unprecedented economic collapse. I walked into a budget impasse on day 523 of a 726-day budget impasse, where we had no budget, no ability to pay people. The average payment delay in paying a vendor who had provided services to Illinois was 210 business days. We had $48,000 in our state's rainy day fund. I mean, there's more money than that in this room. That doesn't get you through 30 seconds worth of operations as a government. We had a growing bill backlog that got as bad as $17 billion in unpaid bills, and over $1 billion in late payment interest penalties because we could not get our act together. That's what I walked into. And so, as bad as the situation is in Chicago right now, it's nowhere near as bad as what I walked into as state controller. We had nothing but 20 years worth of credit downgrades. And so by being fiscally disciplined, by shepherding in transparency reforms where there was no transparency, these are things that can be done. We did it through legislation. It can be done anywhere. But more importantly, living in a very fiscally responsible and disciplined way. It's not just an idea. It is a mindset, but it's a culture, and it forms good habits to be fiscally disciplined. More importantly, by being so fiscally disciplined, by introducing transparency reforms, we were able to then do things like earn credit upgrades, right? We had 20 years of credit downgrades. Now we've had 9 credit upgrades on my watch. And the credit rating agencies have actually talked about the transparency reforms that I put in place so that I can have a better handle of how to tackle the state's financial dysfunction, because for the first time, I was able to actually see it. And so being able to talk about the problems that we have financially is a good thing, because you can't fix them if you can't actually see them. So, passing transparency reforms hasn't happened at the city level. We did it at the state level. I paid down the backlog of unpaid bills with fiscal discipline, and before getting a penny of federal ARPA in the door. We went from $48,000 in a rainy day fund to $2.3 billion today and growing. And that vendor payment cycle, how many business people, how many entrepreneurs right here in this room? So can you imagine waiting 210 business days to get paid by the government for services that you rendered. It should have been criminal. But I've taken that 210-day business delay, and my oldest bill today is 14 days old. And it's been that way for over 3 years because I do believe that thank you. I do believe that giving businesses stability and predictability is key in economic growth. It's key in building trust. And you are providing services that you've had to pay for ahead of time. So it's not my money that I'm paying you by paying you quickly. It's your money that you deserve to be paid as quickly as possible so that you can focus on making your payroll, you can focus on growing your business, and you're not focused on being an unwilling lender to the state of Illinois, right? So the same could be true for the city of Chicago. All these things that we've put in place, all the hard work that my staff and I have done in our role as the Office of Comptroller to fix the state's finances have been to get Illinois ready for its growth spurt. And the beauty of this is that it's math and it's discipline, it's dedication, it's not rocket science. So I say this story with you because when I first ran, people said if you're really smart, if you want to make a good investment, invest in U-Haul and get out of Illinois. That's what people were saying. And I don't really believe, unless if you're a total like Debbie Downer, that people are saying that about Illinois today. They're saying that about Chicago, and that's a concern because it's our economic gem. It's our economic engine. But everything we've done at the state level is, scalable in other places. It just takes, like I said, good leadership who's committed to fiscal discipline, making responsible cuts, and not spending more than you have coming in, and paying down our debts as quickly as possible. So I'm passing it to Joe.
Thanks, Susana. And appreciate the nugget of creating culture that, and are there lessons from the state's recovery that apply?
Well, I think Stuart just nailed that in explaining how poor the fiscal health of the city of Chicago is right now and relative to the markets, right? I started off by saying that I feel that our fiscal situation is precarious, and that is true. This is like the key word to describe where we're at right now. And given the lack of transparency that exists, and given everything you just heard Stuart articulate as to the condition of the markets, no, I don't believe that the city should continue to seek out bonding deals or additional borrowing. I have never seen, truthfully, and this is a good thing, the level of activated citizens in Chicago or residents who got super active about these last bond deals that unfortunately, nonetheless, still went through, really inspired me. I have not seen so many people become vocal and really try to educate the rest of the public as to how bad these deals really were. Because in my prior years, these deals, maybe they weren't this terrible, but they were pretty bad. We had some bad deals, but no one knew anything about them. There wasn't this real activation and momentum to educate folks and to get aldermen to vote the right way. So I do want to credit Stuart Lauren with leading the charge on that because he did such a wonderful job of breaking it all down. He takes super highly complex issues, puts them out there, and then Jenny usually follows up and says, Stuart, can you put this in English so people can get it? And then he does a beautiful job of doing that. But I just have to say, as state controller, Stuart, and as a Chicagoan, I can't thank you enough because this guy isn't getting paid a penny to try to educate the rest of the city as to what needs to happen and what we should be staying away from and what we should be pursuing. But he does it because he loves this city. And I know he loves this city and he wants to see it succeed. And that's super inspirational for me because, Jenny, when you talk about should they be taking on additional debts and, can they handle this? No, they can't. They shouldn't have taken on the debts that they've taken on. This last bond deal, $850 million, pitched literally the day after the city of Chicago was downgraded in their credit. I mean, it should be against the law to do this stuff, but somehow they can do it. And worse yet, I can't even just blame the mayor for this because the aldermen who voted for this should not get reelected. Honestly, it's just so terrible that on this specific deal, as bad as the one before it was for $1.5 billion, this one was for $850 million. They can't really explain to you what it's for because I don't even think they know. And then they're skipping the first 2 years of payments, and then it's interest only for the next 18. I mean, it's like the worst possible deal. You might as well go to a loan shark. And this is how the city's finances are being handled right now. So it is super alarming, but I do think that even though they still pass these things, the amount of pressure that was put on the aldermen to vote on this is something that I know they felt. So we need to keep it up. And so I would just ask all of you to continue to follow Stewart's tweets and amplify that message. Like, call the aldermen, tell them you can't vote for this. This is like asinine and you shouldn't, we're going to hold you accountable. It goes back to leaders who are willing to be transparent, who are willing to defend their decisions with actual facts and a roadmap, and then are willing to be accountable for them. These guys are passing terrible legislation because they are not being held accountable. And I think every person in this room today gives me hope, because you could just be sitting on the sidelines, and frankly, for too many years, too many people have. And they think it doesn't matter if they get involved or not. But when you don't get involved, we end up with the situation that we're in now, that we were in over the last, frankly, 6 years. And this is a problem that has a solution, but it requires bringing intelligent people together and figuring out what those problems are, and then finding a solution to them and not taking an eternity to do so. I'm just curious how many people in this room have ever been reached out to by either this administration or the prior administration to actually work on solving a fiscal problem, or any problem for that matter. Has anybody? And what a shame, because no matter where you look around in this city, look in front of you, behind you, to the left or to the right, everywhere you look, you're going to hit some amazing intellectual human capital here. And I think if there's been lots of failures, honestly, over many administrations, but the last two, their biggest failures, in my opinion, have been not taking advantage of the incredible intellectual capital that we have at every level, whether it's educational, whether it's, from a business perspective, a small business, a huge business, whether you're trying to raise a skyscraper or grow a business or raise your family. There are experts in this city, the greatest city, who want to help, people like Stewart. But you know what happened to Stewart? And now I'm going on a tangent, but what happened to Stewart, when he put all that information out there, and I leveraged it as the state controller, because if the city's finances go down, so do the states. So you better believe I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to leverage people like him. But when I did, then instead of saying, hey, thank you, Stewart, for offering good advice to the city of Chicago, we're going to take a look at it and maybe go in a different direction, or at least hear you out. Literally, the city CFO blasted Stewart Lauren in an op-ed. I've never seen anything like it. So then when I did my op-ed, I gave credit to Stewart Lauren, because that's how it's done. But the point is, I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I know that we're just scratching the surface on lots of topics today. You can't get everything in 45 minutes. But I really want to hear from all of you, so please, just look all of us up on our social media platforms, make a post, let's start a dialogue, and let's keep learning from each other. Okay, number one, I think we have to get public safety under control. I know we talked today a lot about finance, but I think that if we don't get our public safety under control, we're never going to be able to fix our finances. And I truly believe, especially for employers, right? They want to come to a city that is safe, that has great schools, and they want to know that not just their kids, but their employees' kids are going to have access to those schools and are going to feel good about sending their kids to those schools, and that those kids are going to feel safe. Without a doubt, I truly believe that our finances are directly linked to our ability to get control of our streets again. And so, we can have the coolest ideas, and is it a chicken or an egg approach? Like, do businesses, will they invest here if crime is, much, much better handled? Or do you need to grow first before we can get a handle on crime? And I think both of those kind of go hand in hand, because, the truth is, some of the worst neighborhoods over time have become really good neighborhoods because people took a risk on investing in them. And the city has expanded over time, right? So it used to be just people came downtown and this is where it was fun and cool to go. now we've got all these amazing neighborhoods that were in areas that were depressed or non-existent before. Take a look at, Randolph Street or Fulton Market, and there's just so many cool things happening across this city. But I do think that without accountability when it comes to our public safety, it's going to be really difficult to attract businesses. So that runs hand in hand with the finances, as does the fact that we just need to do things better. Like, why would a business come here if it takes them 4 years to open up, right? Like, that's crazy. So if you look at California, right? California is not a place that you think of like, wow, they streamline everything. But to do an affordable housing project here, which, by the way, we've just read stories about these ribbon cuttings on affordable housing projects that are anything but affordable, right? $20 million for 20 units, essentially $1 million a unit. That's crazy. It's a complete misuse of taxpayer money. So we have to start talking about these things and holding people accountable, because with $20 million, you should be able to build way more housing than that. And if it takes you on the minimum side, 2 years or 3 years, 36 months to get all the permitting and the closing of that project done, why would anyone want to do business here? That's fast, actually, because it's normally up to 48 months. But in California, do you know it's 90 days? 90 days you have to close on the project or else it's not going to happen. So there are so many better examples across this country of how to do things better, how to do them more efficiently, how to incentivize businesses to want to actually come to Chicago than what we're doing right now. So I think just cutting out a lot of that bureaucracy and the red tape, and everybody talks about it, but nobody actually does it. This is an opportunity to actually do it. Stop ignoring the credit rating agencies, right? We want to get our fiscal house in order. Stop ignoring the credit rating agencies. I've talked about how I try to have good relationships with them as controller. I'll fly to New York. I'll meet them anywhere they want to meet because I want to talk to them about all the great things we're doing to try to turn around our state's finances and earn their upgrade. I'm obnoxious about it. I already have my graphic for when we get our 10th credit upgrade, because 10 is my favorite number, and I'm ready for it, and I'm a Taylor Swift fan, so 13 sounds good too. But the point is, I let these people know that I am paying attention to the smoke signals they're sending us. And I'm giving them my list of all the check marks all the boxes I'm checking off, following their advice, because I'm serious about wanting to get those credit upgrades. Why? Because it means we're paying less in taxpayer money to pay for the things that we need, those services, the infrastructure, those things that make a city be a great city, a great state, right? So we need to do that. I take pride in saying I'm trilingual. I speak English, I'm fluent in Spanish, and I speak credit talk, right? Like credit rating agencies, I'm there. So we need to get in the habit of not essentially giving them the proverbial finger, but actually paying attention and looking at their advice and taking it seriously. Obviously, we need to get in the habit of showing fiscal discipline and making responsible cuts. And we're not talking about draconian cuts. We're not talking about like shoving austerity down people's throats. We're acknowledging that we can do better. We can provide better service at lower cost. And this is not some like fantasy. I did it as city clerk. I got rid of the city sticker lines. And I did it by, you don't even think about the city clerk's office anymore. Before, people had to take a day off of work, had to go maybe use up a vacation day because they had to go wait in some terrible pilgrimage for 3 to 4 hours in long line. Like it was great America, but there's no fun ride at the end. You get taken for a ride, right? You're paying this really crazy expensive tax. Like if we're gonna make people pay for things, let's make it as easy as possible for them to be in compliance with the law. So I do think that we have to be willing to make cuts. When I became city clerk, I delivered the best service possible. I lowered the cost. I started with 108 employees, ended with 96. We did a better job for less money. We were willing to make those cuts because they were necessary and because I value the hard work of every dollar you send to our coffers. Now, I've done that as controller. I walked in, I told you what a mess it was, right? But you know what I did? Instead of asking for more money because it was so hard to do the job, I asked for less money. I self-imposed a 10% cut. No one else did that at the state level. But I did 10% less of a budget than my predecessor, and I kept a flat budget at 10% reduction for 6 years in a row and delivered the best results that any controller has ever delivered for the state of Illinois, because I value taxpayer money, and it's not mine, it's yours. So we have an obligation to stretch the value of it every chance we get. Think of me as your coupon controller. And I want to say, I already talked about being acknowledging that you're not the smartest person in the room, and that you should frankly surround yourself by those who are. But the last point, which is critical to getting, improving these finances, are to be fully transparent. And I know people talk about transparency all the time. It's like the buzzword, I feel like this administration and so many others, they govern on vibes, on, identity politics, on buzzwords. Whenever you're hearing too many of those buzzwords, it's usually because it's bad stuff happening. They can't actually tell you what they're working on. But transparency is critical in earning trust. Transparency breeds accountability. It's really the building block for earning or restoring trust in government. And it's what the credit rating agencies want to see. If you're not transparent, you're not going to get credit upgrades. And because most people aren't transparent, because they don't want you to see how they're spending your money. But you deserve to know how your money's being spent. And we have to be held accountable as stewards of your tax dollar. So my philosophy, and I'm going to close with this, is really super simple. Well, I'm trying to think, what would it be? If you can't afford it and you can't defend it, then don't spend it. Right? Real simple. You can't defend it, don't spend it, and I think that sums it up.